have to remind anybody of anything, so we'll skip that part. Agenda item 5, technical groups. The emergence of new political parties, groupings during a mandate. At the last meeting, we considered the issue of establishing technical groups. However, no decision was reached. It was agreed to consider it further at today's meeting. Members will recall that we had written to the party whips to seek confirmation on where each of the 5 main parties stands in relation to the establishment of technical groups. Written responses were received from the Alliance Party, the DUP and the SDLP, and these are in the packs at page 88, along with a summary of the responses. The views of Sinn Féin and the UUP were also expressed at the last meeting. No agreement was reached at the last meeting on this issue, and the members wish to reopen the matter for discussion to revisit the proposals made at the last meeting. I do have a point that I noticed Trevor isn't here yet, and he was the one who put a proposal at the last meeting. So I'm going to make one of two suggestions: either that we wait, because I understand Trevor is coming, or if he doesn't, then if we move on to another subject, we come back to this at the next meeting.
Can I just raise one point?
Yes, go ahead.
Supposed to make it, I need to refer back to page 6 in the minutes, where it says the committee considered the written responses from the Alliance Party, the DUP and the SDLP related to the establishment of technical groups, and we have those, so we know what they are.
So just tell me where you are, John.
Point 5 on the minutes, page 6.
Page 6.5.
It refers to the written responses of 3 parties, so we know where they stand. It then says the views of Sinn Féin and the UUP were also expressed at the meeting, but nowhere is it recorded what those views were. So if this chapter closes, the minutes close with no one knowing that, for example, Sinn Féin rejected the proposition. It's not recorded anywhere because they haven't given a written submission, and what they said orally isn't recorded. I don't think that's very satisfactory.
Well, I might half clear this up. Since my memory is that there was a vote and it was a tie, I have gone back to the party, and I could give a position, but I prefer that was done with a full complement here. And there was a proposal put, and the next part of my speaking note is about proposals that were put, which is why I'm suggesting to, and I think Alban raised a couple of issues that the SDLP had raised and wanted some discussion on that. Would that be correct?
That's right, but I think that was a proposal, and I think that was defeated, was it not?
Yeah.
I propose that the committee give further consideration to various issues around the impact of the establishment of technical groups. We were saying, look, in theory we're in favour of this, but we want to know what the effect, what the consequences will be, and let's explore those consequences. But that was defeated by a vote.
If I remember correctly, the conversation was around, we have discussed this now on a number of occasions, and we need to come to some sort of a conclusion on it.
Yes.
However, it was inconclusive. So it's whether, I suppose, whether I don't want to put the proposal again or take another proposal. I'm going to suggest that we deal with it finally and take it on board what Jim says, and I will, or someone from Sinn Féin will give our opinion at the discussion. We either put it off till later in this agenda, in fairness to a proposal which was put the last time, or we deal with it at the next meeting.
Well,
because Jim does make a fair point. The decisions need recorded at some stage.
Well, Chair, I take it, when our position is as has been stated, and I mean, the letter of the dated there the 20th of February, I think is the latest update, which makes no change to our position of the 18th of September 2012.
Yeah.
Well, is there anybody suggesting that there should be a change of our position?
I was just pointing out that the reaffirmation of the old stances makes the recommendation in the Executive Review Committee totally a disingenuous recommendation.
And I think you have recorded that at the last meeting, Jim, and this meeting. Do you want that recorded? I mean, that's
Yes, I do want that recorded.
That's recorded.
But I also want to repeat myself, I want to see recorded Sinn Féin and the Ulster Union's viewpoint.
Okay, well then I think what we can do, if, correct me if I'm wrong, is we can go to the recording and get the views, and we can bring that to the next meeting if that's, that deal with it? Okay. Okay, agenda item 6, a review of topical questions. A briefing paper on the review of topical questions was sent to members last Friday, and copies have also been tabled. The paper provides information on the emerging findings from the analysis of the data collected. We have received 5, 2 were brought in today, the SDLP and the UUP. Submissions so far from the Speaker, the BBC and David McNary. And you'll find these in the packs at page 98. At the next meeting, we hope to have received some more submissions, including the junior ministers, on behalf of the executive ministers, whose views will be important in our consideration of this matter. So, do members have any comments on the emerging findings or wish to raise any other issues at this stage?
Chairman, it was brought to my attention yesterday that on topical questions, the Minister was actually reading answers from one of their members, and that didn't seem to be right for topical questions. I don't know whether other members have to say about it, but that I did witness it, that a member asked a topical question, and the Minister
Knew what he was going to ask.
well, he obviously definitely had. He was reading the answer, and that should
only
be for topical questions.
I'm only surprised that you're surprised.
Wherein is the surprise in that?
Only to the members.
The only way to register against that is not to allow members of the same party as the Minister to ask any topical questions, but that's maybe a bit
I don't think.
drastic. But I think there could be scope, I think could be scope for reflecting the rule that applies to oral questions, that the first question is from a party different than the Minister's party.
Well, that's what the Speaker has suggested in his letter.
I think Kieran's point is that the 5 parties in the executive have an unfair advantage here. I think that's what he's saying.
Well, I mean,
I feel that, would need to issue an immediate and pressing, sorry, we got lost here. We have to define what urgency is. The topical questions are being asked at present just look like ordinary oral question time. And it's not doing anything worthwhile. There's nothing.
well,
We need to revisit what a topical question is.
okay, there's 2 issues there. If we could take them one at a time, Sam. First of all, if we take yours, the topical question in my memory, we had a considerable discussion on this and weren't able to come up with what would probably define the topical question, so a certain amount of leeway was left. And although I don't disagree with your point, quite often the topical questions don't appear to be topical. The reason they were brought to the far end of the oral questions was that sometimes the topical questions being asked were then re-asked in the oral questions. Although there is a facility now that you can attach a topical question to something which you don't think has been answered properly during it. But, I mean, we do have other, I'm just pointing out, we will have other submissions, so we can have a half discussion now, and that in terms of, or leave it, my suggestion is we leave it and re-bring up the point that you're making and try and deal with it at that stage.
But I think it's an immediate and pressing public concern should be a topical question. If we're just repeating some of the old questions that we've put in before along the line somewhere.
And it's not necessarily that I would disagree with you, but I suppose I'm just suggesting that we leave it because I'm going to try and deal with Kieran's point as well. Because I do think we need to deal with that as well. It just strikes me, I don't know, and this is only me, I don't know if you can argue that, I think executive parties possibly do have an advantage, but I don't think that you can argue that the person who asked the first question cannot be of the same party. I mean, it's done as a, it has to be fair to everybody. I do think there might be something around, there is a rule in terms of, I think, supplementaries, that you're not allowed to read them. And,
No, Mr. Chair, I'm talking about the minister.
no, and the point, I'm pointing that towards the minister as well. Maybe it is that the minister, in topical questions, should not be able to read answers out, because it would be very obvious, as you're pointing out, that they have a prepared answer.
What's the term? Plant?
Actually, the sensible thing,
But surely, I mean, the job of the minister too is to anticipate a question. Is he allowed to do that?
my difficulty is I don't think that you can legislate for this, you know, but in fairness, it is a bit crude for the minister to be reading
With all
it.
due respect, Chairman, I feel if you have a short memory, you do need notes in front of you to read it. Well, quite a lot of us do.
No, but it's not the question, it's the answer.
That's fair enough. It's not
the
the
answer.
questionnaire he's talking about.
No, I understand what you're saying about the question from people on the assembly members, but this is the answer. The person is not supposed to know what the question is, so he shouldn't have an answer from he or she.
Chair, just to follow up from those comments, I think we'd all be foolish, really. We'd all be fools to think that this doesn't happen, that parties don't, you know, before any question time. That's what happens. That's what happens in this building with all parties. And we'd be foolish to think that it didn't happen any other way.
That's right.
And the bit that Sam brought up, I think it was maybe in the Speaker's letter or one of them that I read, to do with topical questions. The Speaker's not always aware of what is topical in any given area. So he can't, you know, we may ask a question in topical questions that some people think, is that possibly topical? But it may be in that constituency it is. So he isn't always aware of what's happening in every well, he wouldn't be happening in every constituency in Northern Ireland to say, well, that's not topical. Well, hey, it is. I got a letter in my constituency office this week that makes it topical. So, you know, you can't ask him to try and rule on that either. It's very difficult.
I also think,
Can I
go ahead.
just say,
Andrew.
first of all, I don't think you can define a topical question.
No.
You know, it's in the eye of the beholder. And if you do attempt to do it, you become unduly legalistic and I think restrictive. So I think you're better leaving the whole question of definition open. If the Speaker has a view about topicality, then I think the Speaker should exercise his discretion. But I don't really think you can properly legislate for it. And I think we're better taking the view, look, just let the hair sit, at least for the moment, because it's early days yet. I think topical questions have been successful. I think it's changed things. I think the BBC note that, if you looked at it, recognises that. And I think that we're in a stage of growth. It's a sort of organic thing, and let it grow, and then
Let it mature.
maybe 6 months down the line, have another look at it again, see if we can improve the situation.
Jim, are you looking in?
Yeah, I very much want to agree with what Alban said, and I think the BBC note is interesting. They seem to think it has made question time more relevant.
Yeah.
And maybe on the inside, sometimes it's hard to see that, but if they on the outside think that, well then I would attach a fair bit of weight to that, so.
Probably your questions, Jim.
Well, don't get enough of them. But I think so far so good with it.
I'm going to suggest, if it's okay, because there are other submissions to come
Yeah.
in, we are going to have this conversation again.
Yeah.
If people are content, I'm going to bring it to a close now and come back to it.
Can I just highlight one thing, and again, it's the BBC letter, they're talking about the balance, you know, between topical questions and oral questions. The Speaker made the same point in his letter. So we should be thinking in terms of, do we have the right balance in terms of time for oral questions and topical questions?
That's fair enough. I mean, those are a number of emergent themes, but I just want to not have the discussion a number of times. That's okay. And Sam's point, we'll come back on at that stage as well.
Chair, the frequency as well, the frequency of topical questions for each individual member as well. You could go weeks, you know, without getting a topical question.
Do you, I presume it's
Some
all
other
done.
mechanism to,
I presume it's all done by computer, but you're suggesting that even if the computer throws up the same person 5 times, then there's a difficulty? Well, let's look at that as well.
I think there's also an issue if somebody doesn't bother to turn up. I
Yes.
think there should be some penalty that they're out of the
Yeah.
ballot for the next week or whatever.
Fair point.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, all those are fair points, we'll deal with it at the next.
Sorry, is that purely on topical you're talking about?
Topical questions.
Yeah, well,
How should that not apply?
well, there's no logical reason why it wouldn't.
You may consider it right across the board. Yeah.
That is, if they just don't turn up. Now, there's some people have been in flight to get to the thing, and somebody stopped.
Caught up.
Yeah, caught up with it, but anyway, that's.
Okay. Agenda item 7, review of the current organisation of the business week. Page 104 is a briefing paper summarising the main findings in the 12 responses that we received to the consultation. The key points in each of the submissions are at page 118. The key submission is that from the junior ministers on behalf of the executive ministers, which you will find at page 127. The general consensus in responses received is that the current arrangement of the business week is sound and provides an appropriate balance between plenary, committee and constituency business. The written evidence suggests that no significant changes are needed or desirable. Written responses have been received from the following parties: the Alliance, the DUP, the SDLP, UKIP and the UUP. Are members content that no further evidence is required? It may, if I could suggest, Jim and myself or Oliver to speak for TUV and Finn respectively. Do you want to say anything, Jim, in terms of?
I think it's probably as good as you can make it. There will always be frustrations, but I don't think with any credibility you can reduce below 2 days. I think you have to accept there are blips. As the Speaker said, you know, one of the reasons is the inconsistency of the production of executive business in terms of legislation, but I don't think you can make radical change that would really improve things, as far as I can see.
Well, Sinn Féin would have the same position. No idea of having radical changes to it at the moment. Okay, our members are content that no further evidence is required. We can move on. I think that means that the clerk can prepare a draft report for consideration at the next meeting. For agenda item 8, forward work programme. Page 161 is the forward work programme up to April. Maybe I could give a brief update on 2 of the items. Firstly, in relation to budget scrutiny, members will be aware that the Committee for Finance and Personnel have been considering a draft memorandum of understanding to be underpinned by standing orders as an option for improving the Assembly's input to the budget process. The Chairperson's liaison group has been briefed on progress, and the Finance Committee hope to be in a position to provide us with an update in April or May if things move as planned. The other item relates to subsidiarity monitoring. The OFM-DFM Committee has trialled the monitoring and reporting arrangements. However, it is likely to be a few months before the outcome of the trial is known and whether amendments to standing orders are considered necessary. In the meantime, we have added this item to the list of forthcoming business and we'll bring it back to the committee at the appropriate time. Are members content with the forward work programme?
Yep.
Agenda item 9, correspondence. There's no other correspondence that I know of. Any other business? Date and time of the next meeting is 25th of March at 1 p.m. in room 29. This is this room. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly, Committee Room 29.